Exactly 27 days. On the primary biomonitor, that precise temporal parameter pulsed in luminous gold instead of the standard crimson reserved for necrosis. Why a supposedly dying patient possessed a perfectly synchronized, multi-week cellular countdown, no medical text could explain. My talons clicked against the glass screen. Beneath the hissing sterilization vents lay the human. Commander Nolan Vance rested on the diagnostic bed, his vitals stable despite the jagged shrapnel piercing his shoulder. The sharp tang of antiseptic gel mingled with the burnt ozone of his ruined armor. I rotated the translucent data slate in my grip. According to the initial scan reading, lethal concentrations of an unidentified necrotizing agent flowed through his veins. The most terrifying part wasn't Overseer Kale's lockdown. It was what we found swimming in the human's veins. The absolute quarantine protocols, Overseer Kale initiated without a fraction of hesitation. Heavy blast doors sealed the triage nexus, trapping the metallic scent of fear inside. Alarms blared, drowning out the ambient hum of the life support generators. Kale deemed the human a walking biological weapon. No exceptions were permitted. Vance merely sighed. He reached across his uninjured torso, scratching idly at a patch of dry, flaking skin near his collarbone. Thin white flecks drifted onto the pristine sheets. "Yeah, we shed our whole skin every month," the human stated, his tone entirely flat. "What's the big deal?" My cranial crest flashed a bioluminescent blue in pure, instinctual revulsion. The casual disposal of a massive external organ sounded like terminal decay, not a routine biological function. Across the sterile bay, the consequences of that biology were already manifesting. 2 diplomatic delegates, Valerian envoy Lyra and a Kalan representative, deteriorated rapidly on adjacent cots. Mere accidental exposure to Vance's spilled ichor during extraction had triggered violent systemic reactions. Lyra's melodic breathing had degraded into wet, labored gasps. She weakly clutched a woven blue memory knot from her homeworld. Her core temperature plummeted. Total system override. I magnified the human's blood sample on the primary holoscope, observing the fluid interface with Valerian tissue. The human cells did not simply exist. They hunted. Vast legions of white biological constructs aggressively surrounded and dissolved any foreign material they encountered. I categorized it immediately as a hyperlethal Purium variant, a predatory acid designed to conquer and destroy. "Isolate the anomaly and prepare for sterilization," Kale's voice boomed through the overhead comms. I requested permission to analyze the predatory cells further, hoping to synthesize a neutralizing agent. Denied. Ignorance, the overseer preferred over the risk of contamination. As acting medical director of the trapped ward, my clinical detachment began to fracture under the weight of genuine terror. Another violent tremor shook Envoy Lyra. Sweat beaded along her brow. Her monitor flashed critical. I looked back down at the translucent data slate in my talons. That luminous golden parameter, 27 days, continued its steady, impossible pulse. If this was a weapon of pure cellular destruction, the mathematical precision of its cycle made absolutely no sense. Something crucial was missing from the diagnosis. Beside the diagnostic bed, Warden Brunt stood guard. The Kalan representative convulsed once, then ceased moving entirely. A high-pitched, sustained tone signaled total organ failure. Across the bay, Lyra's condition worsened. She weakly clutched a woven blue memory knot from her homeworld, her pale fingers loosening as her core temperature plummeted. My entire career and her life balanced on a knife's edge. I reconfigured the holoscope, stripping away the chemical filters to view the raw data stream. What I saw defied every law of Salvari biology. The human body was not melting from a foreign toxin. It was aggressively rebuilding itself. 2.5 million new blood cells were manufactured every single second. Such violent, rapid creation I had never witnessed. This was no necrotizing pathogen. Beside the heavy blast doors, Warden Brunt shifted his weight. He raised a thick thumb, slowly wiping a smudge of condensation off his tactical visor. "You have one chance," Brunt whispered, stepping aside from the secure medical synthesizer. My cranial crest flashed a brilliant, bioluminescent blue, the Salvari marker for an irreversible choice. From Vance's arm, I extracted a fresh crimson sample. I cross-referenced the human's internal parameters, reading the data aloud to steady my trembling talons. 150,000 to 400,000 platelets per microliter. A literal army of cellular architects, circulating endlessly, waiting for a structural breach to repair. Shattered were all our clinical assumptions. The human did not simply survive damage. His biology systematically destroyed its own weak cells to forge stronger ones. Old tissue was constantly discarded to construct the new. What my scanners categorized as a predatory acid was simply a macrophage response clearing debris. What happens when a species' greatest defense mechanism looks exactly like a galactic plague? It becomes the singular key to universal immunity. Sparks showered the sterile floor tiles. The heavy blast doors groaned as Overseer Kale's security team cut through the magnetic lock. "Step away from the infected," Kale roared, stepping through the breached metal with his weapon drawn. I ignored the direct command. Plunging the synthesized syringe into Lyra's arm, I depressed the plunger. Golden fluid pierced the delegate's vein, neutralizing the rot in seconds. The biomonitors shrieked a warning. Then, they abruptly harmonized into a steady, rhythmic chime. Color flooded back into Lyra's translucent skin. The necrotic spread halted, reversed, and began to seal with impossible speed. Kale lowered his weapon, his mandibles hanging slack in absolute silence. The great overseer, paralyzed by the sheer efficiency of human biology. On his diagnostic cot, Vance merely adjusted his posture, yawned, and went back to sleep. 2 cycles later, the triage nexus sat entirely empty. The hissing sterilization vents remained powered down. On my cold metal desk rested the translucent data slate. The golden parameter still pulsed steadily on the pristine glass. 27 days. The exact duration of a human epidermal regeneration cycle.